Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Daily Fantasy Fire MMA show, brought to you by your host, Jake Foley, also known as JFO MMA Talk. Alongside me, as always, is Austyn Varney, our DFS expert. How are you doing today?
Good. We got 256 on our hands this weekend, and plenty to talk about, plenty to dive into. A couple locks on both of our sides. So yeah, let's dive in.
Yep, UFC 256 this Saturday night starts at 7 p.m. Prelims on ESPN Plus. We have the main card on pay-per-view. One of those pay-per-views that I always buy the pay-per-views, but this is one it's going to really feel good no matter, when I do knock out the $60 for it. I am in love with this card, and even better than just watching it as a fan and enjoying it, this betting slate is looking amazing. Everything's lining up. The right things are speaking to me, and I think we're set to win some big money on Saturday night. So, as we all know now, the main event, both fighters fought 3 weeks ago. Configurato versus Brandon Moreno, main event, UFC Flyweight Championships. What are your thoughts in general on taking that?
Yeah, I mean, I lean Figueiredo. I think the number's a little bit too big right now at 325. I do think Moreno's a little more live of a dog than Perez was. I still think Figueiredo makes it happen. I would probably be looking at an inside the distance type of bet, or maybe try and pick out the second or third round finish type of deal. But I wouldn't lean too strong on that one. How about you?
I would gonna see the same. I think Figueiredo. The main thing for me is how Brandon Moreno's wrestling is going to be incorporated. I feel like we did this with Alex Perez. They're completely different fighters, of course, but we thought Alex Perez could maybe use his wrestling a little bit. He did that. A guy who's had so many submissions in his career, Figgy puts him down quick. So I think Figueiredo, as this fight goes on, slowly has a better chance to win this fight. I don't think Moreno's going to come out and finish Figgy quick, but if, he can use his wrestling, get him down, and specifically, Moreno can't try to jump on a submission or force anything, because if he does, Figueiredo is very explosive. He can get out very fast, and he can lose a very dominant position. But if Moreno's very smart, he's ready to go to war, he could definitely, win the first, second round if he can use his wrestling, keep him down. Later rounds, who knows what happens. Figueiredo is a very well-rounded fighter, maybe one of the best well-rounded fighter in the UFC. But the problem is once we continue to see a guy like him who's getting so many of these finishes, first round, second round, for all of his championship fights, if someone could wear him down a little bit, that's how you got to slow him down. We have to his power carries into the fifth round. If grappling, if it doesn't work for the first couple rounds and somebody is actually on top of him, how is he going to react to that? Is it going to tire him down a little bit? How does he work from the bottom as well? That's something that I truly want to see tested, and that's where Moreno could make this a very interesting fight. But it's easier said than done. I feel like, I was saying some of these similar things with Alex Perez, and Figueiredo just claims dominance once again. But from a daily fantasy perspective, how do you look at this fight? Because if Figueiredo he gets a first or second round knockout or finish, that's amazing. We love that. There's nothing more we can ask for in DFS. But if this fight goes a little slower, Moreno really tires him out. How do you see it affecting the point system and the overall standings if it goes into the fourth and fifth round?
Yeah, so it's tough. I think we're going to talk about FanDuel pricing. Just for this, DraftKings is a little bit different, but it's pretty much the same. It's important to have those fourth and fifth rounds. If there isn't a knockout, there are a lot more significant strikes. There will likely be some takedown defense from Figueiredo if Moreno's trying to get to the ground. We could see a lot of shots from Moreno. So I do think the upside's there for Figueiredo, but he's $1 more than Cyril Gane. He's $2 more than Hooper. I don't think it's a must at all, like it usually is in main events. I think there are guys with more upside and that are just as safe. So while I do like it, I think the ownership is probably going to be around 35, 40%, and I'll probably pass. I think I'll probably be around 20.
And so you don't see yourself at all playing both fighters in a scenario that it goes 5 rounds, they have this crazy war, maybe both guys come out with 100 points.
Yeah, absolutely. It's possible. It is possible. This is a pretty sizable card, and that's something I look to do on smaller cards. In a GPP, there's a better chance there's going to be 6 guys that have a higher score than that second, whoever loses that fight. Especially Moreno likely playing a little bit defensive, trying to, play it safe for a couple rounds. I think this is a fight we might see a couple times, especially if Moreno wins. It's absolutely going to happen a few times. But these guys seem to be a little bit clear of the rest of the division. I think this might be a fight we see a couple times, in the next couple of years.
And also, so just in general, daily fantasy can be so subjective when it comes to specific picks. If we're doing betting picks, as we will, our parlays, that's more specific. But daily fantasy fire, it seems like no matter how much every player has to put their own little twist on it. So that's, of course, something we always have to recommend to anybody listening, to just take everything we're saying, take our point of view, put your own little twist on it, because that's what can set you apart, get you winning big money, because we're trying to win big on Saturday night. But
a thing I like to say for DFS is create a storyline. Take a storyline and ride with it.
A narrative.
Yep. Pick a narrative, whether it doesn't have to be what the public thinks. If it is what the public thinks, you have to be different somewhere. There's no way you're going to pay down this week for, who do you think's going to be popular? Probably Moisano for $14 on FanDuel is probably going to be the most popular underdog bet with the odds, what it's looking at. If you plug him in 4 more favorites with, one, a Moreno or a Holland or a Pineda, you're not going to be different enough. You have to create a narrative. UFC is weird. It happens. It's not like any week is normal. There's always something to take advantage of. You just have to find it.
And so just bouncing around such a big card, we don't have to go through every single fight, but just the ones that we're really focusing on. Let's just go right into that first one we were talking about right before we started this podcast. Chase Hooper versus Peter Barrett. Chase Hooper coming at a very strong negative 385. Hooper was $22 on FanDuel. And just in general, what do you see something like that? Because Chase Hooper, we know the talent he has, but at 21 years old, his last fight, we saw that, when he gets taken in the third round, those deep waters, he can not get exposed, but he needs to definitely get more experience. And a guy like Peter Barrett is not going to go away.
Yeah, no, it's tough. So we're not going to touch on him yet, but my favorite guy, we haven't touched on him yet. So he's not my favorite way to pay up in cash games or tournaments. But it's tough because I think if Hooper wins, he probably ties up his neck in the first round. I think that's probably just what happens. If he gets it to the ground, he might just be on a different level, and the fight just might be over quick. If he doesn't, you're spending $22 on somebody who's probably going to end up with 445 fantasy points. So I wouldn't touch him in cash games, but in the tournament, if I'm going to play him, it'd be in the MVP spot. I just think there's a chance, maybe 45-50% chance that this just goes right to the ground. It's over fast. Just one of those fights we see where the guy's just in a different ballpark. If it doesn't happen, Peter Barrett, at $8, you can do a lot worse, especially on FanDuel where you're getting 7 points for every single takedown defense. If he figures out a way to defend 4 or 5 in the first round, even if he gets submitted in the second, it'll be fine for $8. You're able to spend up for the rest of your lineup. You got Peter Barrett at 10-15%. I don't hate it, but I think this is a fight where you probably take one side on FanDuel. If you don't, you're playing with fire almost, because if Hooper ties him up in the first round, it's going to be tough to not have that in a tournament, that 175 points at MVP, unless the guy we talk about does what we think he will. But if you don't have Barrett and this lasts into the third round, you're looking at 75 points out of a guy for $8. That's going to be very hard to make up, because you're looking at people like Sam Hughes and Dos Santos and Cub Swanson, who I just don't think have the same upside no matter how the fight goes. I think it's a fight you probably want to target one way or the other.
What kind of ownership do you expect from either side of them? Not as much Peter Barrett, because we know it'll be low, but Chase Hooper, do you think that's going to scare off a lot of people, or most people will look at that and just be very confident and play it, hoping that it gets the first round finish?
Yeah, putting some lineups together so far, it looks like, just get out of the way. Figueiredo gone and Hooper are the 3 best options. There is Sergey Spivak, and you're getting pretty ballsy there if you're going to take him over those 3 guys. I think those guys each see about 40-45% ownership, and each see about 20 to 23 in MVP. And then, you get down to Mackenzie Dern, who's going to see a good amount of ownership. You get down to Tony Ferguson, who's going to see some good ownership. Kevin Holland, I think those guys are all around, 5 guys and girls, 5 to 7% owned in the MVP spot, and probably around 25 to 35 usually. But I think those top 3 guys are going to end up around 45%. And I don't think it's going to be very different between the three.
So that's pretty much it for that fight. We're looking at Peter Barrett for the most part. I might throw Chase Hooper into a parlay just in case, so it goes either way. It's just we've learned in the past we do not want to get too confident on the first fight on a big favorite, because if it's an underdog, the first fight, the whole night's messed up. So if anything, I think we touch a little bit on Peter Barrett. Chase Hooper still has that potential. We know that. I think it's a little riskier than the betting lines say. But
but if I'm going to touch that in betting, it's going to be I'm looking at Hooper to win in round 1 plus 175 on Bettis. It's probably the only bet I'd have any interest on plus money. Other than that, I think what you said. I'm right in line with you on that one.
And so looking at another fight that we feel very strong on, let's jump right into the main card. Kevin Holland versus Ronaldo Soza. How are you seeing this fight, especially coming in at a negative 110 where we can really just pick them?
Yeah, it's an interesting fight, right? Because Holland's got, a 9-10 inch reach advantage. But what if Souza gets him on the ground? What happens, right? Holland will probably try tying up some arms, and it's very possible he does, but it's also possible he gets smacked, right? For DFS, this is a fight I think you have to have. I don't think this lasts 3 rounds either way. If it does, there's going to be a lot of damage done one way or the other. You're looking at Souza for 14 and Holland at, he's looking at 17. Both prices are friendly. I don't have a strong lean. I'd probably say I'm about 70-30 on Holland. I think Holland works around the outside of the cage and makes it happen. If he gets taken down, I think he has enough to get up. I don't think Souza's as explosive as he was. But if Holland's backing up and he gets clipped with a hook, it's very possible he just sinks, right? So at $14, I think Souza is interesting in GPPs. Do you see that happening? You like Holland, right?
Yeah, I got to take Holland on this one. It's just Souza, his jiu-jitsu is obviously world-class, but at the same time, he's past his prime, 41 years old, hasn't won his last couple fights, and his last 7 or 8 fights, he doesn't really use his ground game to the way he did in his prime. So I question that, at certain times when he stands for too long and he kind of gets in this brawl, if he does that with Kevin Holland, it's going to be lights out.
Yeah.
And if it goes to the ground, I think Souza could definitely submit him if he gets in the right spot because, he has so much experience with submissions, one of the best grapplers we've ever seen. But the problem is Kevin Holland isn't the worst on the ground in the world. He's pretty talented on the ground. So quick. If he gets there, it's not like he wants to be down there. He's going to try to get up right away and stuff. But it won't be like the second he goes to the ground, it's just over. The fight's over like we saw with at least last week or 2 weeks ago with Martin Day. He got taken down. It was just there was nothing down there. So either way, I feel really confident with Kevin Holland. And especially to the point where if it's negative 110, I really like that throwing into a parlay for value, just taking that money line off rip. I really think I also like the prop bet for it too. Kevin Holland is my lock of the night because I also like the prop bet of KO. I think it's sitting at like plus 200 or something like that.
I'm seeing plus 310. So
plus 310. So if Souza's a little slower, a little aged, can't get him to the ground, Holland just moves quick, active. He could light him up, and I think he could get the finish. And I'm sure he's coming in very pissed off, too, because of the whole COVID situation. Lost that fight opportunity against Jack Hermanson. Now, look, Marvin Vettori beat him, and now Marvin Vettori suddenly ranked number 5, and everyone's talking about Vettori.
And Holland was pissed even after his last fight. He just wasn't even happy with his performance in the first place. So he's been itching to get back in there.
I think he's going to be ready to go. He's going to come out firing, and Souza has the experience.
It does speak to the difference, right, in betting in DFS. So if I'm betting, I'm right on your page. I am not touching Souza at minus 110. No way. But if I think it's 70-30 and Holland's $17 and Souza's $14, that's just a spot where you just make sure you sprinkle in some Souza, right? But I'm 100% think. I think this line should be more so minus 160 plus 135, somewhere in there. So if you're getting Holland at 110 or 120, I think you take it.
And so another person moving on that we're really huge on, it is Mackenzie Dern coming in at a negative 185 favorite. How you feeling about that fight?
Yeah, she's probably right up there with Cyril Gahn tonight, who we'll touch on as my lock of the night. I just think she outclasses Jandiroba. Jandiroba has been good. She hasn't faced many great fighters. You just look at her track record's just not what Mackenzie Dern's is. I like Dern to finish this one early. I don't know if she gets it done in the first round, but I think she could get it done in the second round, which is even better odds. You're looking at plus 550 to finish this in the second round. I think she probably wears her out for the first round. Jandarova probably survives, comes out in the second round, it's over early. That'd be my lean for a betting perspective for FanDuel. Dern's probably going to be in about 75% of my lineups, and I have a complete fade on Jandarova. I don't see the upside.
Yeah, and just looking at the fight in general, anything can happen in a mixed martial arts fight, especially just in sports betting in general. But there's certain times where, in MMA, anything can happen, like I just said, but there's not the best path of victory here for Jandarova, because if she stays on the feet, I think she has a little bit more power than Mackenzie Dern, but Dern's more active, throws a lot more punches. So if it stays on the feet, I think she could win on the scorecard, unless, of course, she gets caught or something, but that's a risk no matter what. And if that happens and she starts getting more volume, if this fight goes to the ground, Jandarova has tons of submissions. She's a great jiu-jitsu practitioner. She uses it really well in mixed martial arts. My only problem is, as Corey Anderson said before he left the UFC for Bellator, there's levels to this shit. And when it comes to jiu-jitsu, that's exactly what Mackenzie Dern is. You can be a great jiu-jitsu practitioner, have a bunch of submission finishes. Mackenzie Dern is on a different level. The only girl that's even looked like she can hang on the ground for a second with Mackenzie Dern is Amanda Ribas, who is slowly exploding into the superstar in the women's division. So with that being said, that being her only loss too, Mackenzie Dern is what I'm most confident about. I want to take Mackenzie Dern by submission. I'm going to put her in the parlay. And FanDuel, I'm thinking a first-round submission on the ground. So no matter what, it's one of those people that you can try to fade the public to catch him off guard, but the risk is not worth it, in my opinion. I think you got to go all Mackenzie Dern here. Like I said, anything can happen. I'm just not seeing the best path of victory. So Jandarova. And I might even take it the money line just a little bit because it's negative 185. I'm feeling pretty confident on it, like just her winning no matter if it's a submission decision, because that's the only concern we obviously have to have about DFS. Betting, parlays, prop bets, you lose a prop bet, it's big odds, you get over it. Parlays are big, of course, but in DFS, we could be right and she could win and maybe even dominate, but it's all going to come down to the points. How many points does she actually have? If she sits there and she wins 30-27, but they stand around and walk around each other and she lands 40 punches, that's a problem where, 75% could definitely affect that. So have you looked at it in that perspective at all?
Yeah, I like Dern to probably force it to the ground. I think she's probably better, standing up than Jandarova is, but only barely. On the ground, it's way, it's not even close. So I think she forced it to the ground, and I think the first round she'll probably pick up, 30, 40 significant strikes, and I think the second round she submits her. So, yeah, I like her on FanDuel. I don't like her over Figueiredo, Gane, or Hooper at MVP, so I will have those guys in MVP, but like I said, she's probably going to be about 75% of my lineups, and on top of that, I don't know if you've ever caught this, but she increases her Brazilian accent every single time she fights, so we get to see just how Brazilian she's turned now this time. Have you seen that before?
Oh, yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, when she was 14, she was just a regular white girl, and now she's speaks like Anderson Silva. It's hilarious. It's awesome.
So now, moving on into the main card still, heavyweight fight, Junior Dos Santos versus Cyril Gane. That's obviously one we're both pretty heavy on. What do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I think Gane knocks him out in the first round. Dos Santos just hasn't looked the same. He looks like this could probably be his last fight if it goes how I expect it to go. He's old. I don't know. He's a legend. He's one of the best to ever do it. But I think Cyril Gane. It is interesting because we've seen guys survive Gane that I don't know how. When you look at him and you see the punches that are hitting their face, it looks like they should be dropping, but they're not. So maybe not.
I also think that comes with the fact that he's 6-0 in the heavyweight division. So it's just a fact that he does fight so smart because, in certain spots he has people injured and some people they run in at heavyweight and you get knocked out at one punch. Right. So I do like to see the patiency. the main thing for Dos Santos that I'm truly worried about when it comes up, of course, I think Cyril Gane's going to win, but when you look beyond that and you want to really break it down to your best chance of winning some money, the problem with Junior Dos Santos for me is it's the heavyweight division. And you look kind of the Kevin Holland, it's a different but kind of similar situation in a weird way, that fight. Ronaldo Soza is very old, he's slowing down, but it's in a division where he can make it work. 185 has a lot of power, but at the same time, if he uses his grappling, stuff like that, he can make this fight work at an older age. The problem with Dos Santos is known for mostly, his stand-up, at least his last couple of fights that we've seen. And either way, no matter what you do, he's going to have a problem with Cyril Gane. This is not the division that you want to be a guy who's on the fence of retiring, because if he's slowed down even just a little bit, Cyril Gane is super motivated, hasn't fought in a while, he's ready to get back in there, has a great opportunity to get a good name on his resume and potentially not take much damage if he can get an early finish. My thought for this fight is either way, no matter what it goes, I think it'll be the only thing is, a heavyweight fight could slow down. We've seen that in the past. Maybe they slow it down, get a little tired, a lot of feints, get worried about each other's power because they have so much respect for each other. And then it doesn't get us the points we need. But when it comes to, parlays, prop bets, all those picks, I see Cyril Gane winning this fight either way. I think he throws more punches, more takedowns, so he'll win a decision. If they really start exchanging, I think he's quicker at this point in his career, in Dos Santos' career, has a little bit more power. And if it goes to the ground, we've seen that Gane can be very dangerous on the ground. He might even be better on the ground, potentially.
Yeah, and Dos Santos has not looked good on his back at all. Not at all.
So either way, I'm thinking it as, as slow, starts off slow. They start exchanging, feel each other out for a little bit, throw a lot of feints. Gane catches him with some power Dos Santos maybe isn't expecting, or some flurry. If Dos Santos goes down, Gane will get on top of him, control, top mount, end the fight. That's how I see it going.
Yeah, there's absolutely a question about Dos Santos' chin, too. At his age, after getting knocked out like that in the last fight, I mean, you don't know. He might get clipped in the chin. It's, lights out. Who knows? The Rosenstrike got him pretty good. So I just, for DFS, it's hard for me not to have a lot of Gane in MVP. Whether he knocks him out in the first round or he hits him with 120 significant strikes, he's active as a heavyweight. He takes people down. He doesn't let them up. He'll get up himself and ground and pound. I mean, he just doesn't let up. I don't see much downside to him. Obviously, he can get clipped. Like you said, that's a risk in any fight. But, no, Gane's my lock of the night, my favorite. Obviously, for betting, the raw line is pretty big. Which prop would be your favorite of all?
I would probably have to look into it and see what inside the distance is if you have it up right now, because I'm not too confident about KO, but I'm not I think it could be a submission or knockout because he's pretty strong.
We're looking at minus 300 to finish inside the distance, but we got plus 200 on round 1, plus 375 on round 2, and plus 700 on round 3, plus 275 on points. So it looks like the most likely is round 1 or points. I think there's some value in round 2. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at plus 375, Dos Santos just, shows that warrior spirit, hangs around.
They feel each other out for a few minutes.
And then finishes him in the second. That's a good possibility, too, at plus 375. But
yep. I got a question for you. Which underdog do you like the most on this card? You got Moisano, who's at plus 130, not too strong of an underdog. I know, there's a lot of attention on him. You got Cub Swanson at 130. You got Gavin Tucker at 140. If guys want an underdog bet, who are you leaning on?
I'd probably have to lead more towards Moicano. I think Swanson's being pretty underrated here. I understand he's, at that stage where it's like he hasn't looked good in his last fights and he's technically looks more washed up, but I still think that Pineda offers him a chance to get a win. And I don't always, agree with the odds makers, but at plus 135, they're feeling the same way. If they thought this was going to be another, new school, getting a big name on their resume type thing, then Cub Swanson would have probably came in at plus 195, plus 200. I think Moicano is a good one too. I'm just a little worried because when I was first looking at the fight, I always break it down before I look at the betting odds. I was sure that Moicano was going to be a favorite.
220 or something. Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be like negative 200, to be honest. Like, I thought he was going to be a big favorite. And once again, sometimes I don't agree with the betting odds, but at certain points, they know stuff. And it does threw me off a little bit. So I put Moicano in my FanDuel lineup, but when it came to, prop bets or anything more than that, maybe I'll do a money line, but I'm not going to do the parlay because that fight was a little weird. I did end up putting Swanson in my parlay, but that was because I took so many favorites. I needed value somewhere.
Yeah, I'm right in line with you, actually. I think Swanson's interesting, and I like Moicano a lot. He's a bulldog in the cage. I mean, he's a guy that you're going to like to bet on. There's some guys when it's the second the bell starts, you're like, God damn, why did I bet on this guy? He's not that. He's going to fight for 15 minutes. So I like him. A guy I like a lot is Jared Vanderay. He's nicknamed the Mountain. I've been watching some highlights of him for good reason. The dude is a lumbering, very unathletic dude who, I mean, if it stays on the feet, he's going to get picked apart by Spivak, who's a lot more talented. He's more clean. But if Vanderay gets him on the ground, if you go and watch Spivak when he gets on the ground, he's not great at all. And you're not getting up when that dude is on top of you. I mean, he is massive.
I think if Spivak ends up on top, I think he can finish the fight.
Oh, yeah. If Spivak's on top, absolutely. I meant him on the bottom. If Vanderay's on top of him, he's so much bigger than him. I think he's going to probably be 20 pounds, 25 pounds bigger in the cage than Spivak is, who, yes, I'll give it to you. He's a lot more talented than Vanderay. Vanderay is just a bully. If he gets him down, I think he can clip him on the ground and pound. It's something I like a lot for DFS. And at 185, it's not like he's a crazy price, but I think I'd probably get some exposure if I can get him over 200.
Yeah, and as a fighter and as a person, because I interviewed him just the whole 9 yards, I love Jared Vanderay. I want him to be super successful one day, maybe even, fight for a title if possible. My only concern is that in the Contender Series, he won the contract, of course, because in a heavyweight division, they need everybody. So, of course, it made sense to get the contract. He had a great performance, but the guy he was fighting, I feel like, had a much shorter reach, was much lighter, and Jared Vanderay, he showed off his chin, which was very impressive. We love that, but kept his hands down a lot and really tried to trust his chin too much. And I get worried because it was a smaller guy, and if you watch that fight, the guy landed a lot of big shots. They just didn't, put him down.
The Spivak, he doesn't seem very strong. He's very sharp and whatnot, but he doesn't seem to have that.
It's not as much in Spivak as it's just
getting blown. Yeah, I know.
It's the UFC heavyweight, even the regional heavyweight division. Fighting like that, that's why I can't get too confident. I like the plus 250. I like the odds. Maybe even a submission if he can end up on top of Spivak. There's probably some value in that. But as a whole, I really want to see him working a little faster and keeping his hands up because Spivak doesn't have the most power. But like I said, anyone in the UFC heavyweight division, if they catch you 2 or 3 times, it's not the Contender Series. You're going to go lights out. And I do get concerned about that. And just in general, he managed well in his Contender Series fight, but he does look kind of stiff at times when he's moving around the cage. When he's trying to apply pressure, it looks good because he's walking him down. The guy's walking back.
He's definitely a very funky fighter. You kind of need that game script to go exactly how you need it to go with him.
But
it's almost
if he starts getting pushed back, and looking stiff, pushed back, starts getting pushed up against the cage, that's where I start to get worried. And then it's either he gets knocked out or while he's trying to dodge shots, Spivak just drops him down and he's right there. So I think there's solid value on it, but I do get a little worried. We have one more fight to talk about because we've gotten all of our main picks. That is the co-main event, the expected fight of the night, Tony Ferguson versus Charles Oliveira. How are you seeing this one?
I think it's foolish to even say we know, right? These guys are both just such monsters, and they're probably both going to throw the game plans out the second they get in the cage and just start beating each other's asses. If I'm going to lean one way, it's Ferguson. I think he can just take it. I think he can take as much as he can, just give it out. It's dangerous, though. If Oliveira wraps you up, he's so tight. I mean, it's tough. For DFS, it's a fight I think you have to get exposure to. You got Ferguson at $18. You got Oliveira at $15. These guys are going to fight. They're not going to sit in the cage for a single minute of the 15 and not fight. Either way, I think one of the guys ends up over 100, and the pricing is solid. So, which way are you leaning?
I mean, I was looking at it before. I'm on Tony Ferguson for right now. I was saying on my podcast before, though, you do have a very good point with needing exposure, but this was one of the fights that I really was talking about. Just if you're not super confident one way, maybe avoid this fight because
in cash game I'll have 0%. Yep.
Because
0%.
one spot bets, this could go any way. Either of them could submit each other. They could either finish each other. It could be a decision. I'm not doing a prop bet. You throw them in the parlay. All I was thinking about is if, let's say, I got 6 fights. The parlays, there's 4 right.
That's
the
a
main
scary
event
fight. That's a scary fight.
The main event is Configurato.
Oh, yeah.
So you're feeling confident about that. The only thing you have left is this fight, and it's just so unpredictable. Money line, I don't even know if I want to touch unless I want to take Ferguson, but I think the way I don't like the odds right now either for a money line unless I have a change of heart for Oliveira. Because at Ferguson negative 165, I feel like he could easily lose this fight. And that's paying a little bit. For negative 165, I prefer to pay more of like negative 125 for a fight like this, negative 110. But I do get worried that you are going to need it, like you said, in some DFS lineups, because if these guys just go at it, they're so hungry, both of them in their own perspective, that they're going to come out looking for a finish fast.
Yeah, it's hard to when the night's on, it's Saturday night, and you're betting every fight, you're going through the night. But this is one of those fights where it's like, click off your crowd, just watch it. It's like,
just
you'll
enjoy
be fine. Just enjoy it. It's like, I don't even want to have a side. I don't even want to root for one of these guys. I just want to watch this and remember, without having that bias. So from a FanDuel perspective, I'll have a little bit of both, but from a betting perspective, I'm probably, I'm just going to watch it and wait for that main event.
And that's all for it. Just a quick little recap. We're going big on Gane. We're going big on Holland. We're going big on Dern.
What's your lean on Robertson Lee? Just to get it.
Wait, which one?
For Jillian Robinson, Andrea Lee, where are you leaning?
That fight got canceled.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the only one they don't have canceled. Okay, good. That's a hard fight for me. I needed your advice. Okay, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So that's all the picks. We're taking Gane, Holland. We're going big on Configurato. Everything else. That is all. We will be doing a weekly episode like this for a weekly MMA betting show brought to you by dailyfantasyfire.com. Check out the website, follow on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're always looking to talk more mixed martial arts, DFS. Hit us in the comments with your opinions. We'd love to hear them. Until next week, anything else you would like to say to the people before UFC 256 goes down Saturday night?
Yeah, nothing. Just tune in next week for some Stephen Thompson and Geoff Neal. We'll be covering that card as well, so check on back.
Get ready to win some more big money on Saturday night, UFC 256. Till next time.